My husband walked out after his jealous brother framed me for infidelity. Now Hez back, apologizing, and I have to decide if I can ever trust him again. When I look back, it all seemed so perfect. James and I had a marriage that others envied. Our friends would often comment on how lucky we were to have found each other, how our love seemed unshakable. We had our routines, our private jokes, and a bond that felt invincible. James was my rock, and I was his confidant. We were partners in every sense of the word. But perfection is often an illusion, and beneath the surface, there were cracks I chose to ignore. One of those cracks was James' younger brother, Mike. From the moment I met him, I sensed something off. Mike was always around, always lurking in the background with a smile that never quite reached his eyes. He had a way of making snide comments under the guise of jokes, and his jealousy was palpable, though he tried to hide it. Mike and James were close, but their relationship was complicated. Mike had always felt overshadowed by James' achievements. Where James was successful, confident, and well-liked, Mike struggled to find his own footing. It seemed that no matter what Mike did, he could never quite measure up in the eyes of their parents or the world. And so, he resented James, and by extension me. It all began to unravel one fateful evening. James and I were hosting a small dinner party for our closest friends. The house was filled with laughter and the aroma of home-cooked food. Mike, as usual, was there, blending into the crowd, his eyes always watching. I was busy in the kitchen when I noticed him slip upstairs. It struck me as odd, but I dismissed it, focusing instead on our guests. After dinner, we gathered in the living room, sharing stories and enjoying each other's company. It was then that James received a message on his phone. I watched as his face contorted in confusion, then in anger. He stood up abruptly, his eyes locking onto mine. "Emily, we need to talk, now," he said, his voice cold and unfamiliar. The room fell silent. Our friends exchanged puzzled glances as I followed James to the study. My heart was pounding, a sense of dread settling in my stomach. Once we were alone, he thrust his phone at me, the screen displaying a series of photos and text messages. They were explicit, detailed, and damning. Photoshopped images of me with another man, messages implying an affair. "What is this?" I stammered, my mind racing to understand what I was seeing. "Don't play dumb, Emily," James snapped. "I've been hearing rumors, but I didn't want to believe them. Now I have proof." "James, this is a lie. I've never seen these before. You have to believe me," I pleaded, tears welling up in my eyes. "How can I believe you when the evidence is right here?" he shouted, his face red with anger and hurt. "I thought we had something real, but it was all a lie." In that moment, the world I had built came crashing down. I could see the pain and betrayal in James' eyes, and no matter how much I protested, he refused to listen. He stormed out of the room, leaving me in a daze of confusion and despair. The next few days were a blur. James packed a bag and left, his silence louder than any words could have been. Our friends, our family, everyone heard about the so-called affair. The whispers and judgmental looks were unbearable. Overnight, I went from being a beloved wife to a social pariah. It wasn't long before I discovered who was behind the cruel deception. Mike had always had a knack for technology, and it became clear that he had fabricated the evidence. He had manipulated photos, created fake messages, and planted the seeds of doubt in James' mind. He had orchestrated the perfect betrayal, and James had fallen for it. But proving it was another matter. Confronting Mike only led to more lies and denials. He played the victim, painting me as the unfaithful wife trying to deflect blame. And with James gone, I had no one to turn to, no way to clear my name. In the months that followed, I tried to piece my life back together. I threw myself into work, avoiding social gatherings and the inevitable questions about my marriage. The loneliness was crushing, but I refused to let it break me. I knew the truth, and I clung to it like a lifeline. Then, one evening, out of the blue, James called. His voice was hesitant, filled with a mix of regret and uncertainty. "Emily, can we meet? I need to talk to you." My heart raced at the sound of his voice. a million thoughts flooding my mind. "Okay," I replied, my voice barely above a whisper. As I hung up the phone, I felt a surge of emotions: hope, fear, anger, and longing. James was coming back, but what did he want? Was he ready to believe the truth, or was this just another twist in our painful saga? Only time would tell, but one thing was certain: our story was far from over. And as I prepared to face James again, I knew that whatever happened next would shape our future in ways I couldn't yet imagine. When James called asking to meet, I didn't know whether to feel relief or anxiety. Our relationship had been so torn apart that the idea of seeing him again was both comforting and terrifying. We agreed to meet at our favorite cafe, a place that held too many memories of happier times. As I arrived, I spotted James sitting at a corner table, staring into his coffee cup. He looked tired, worn down by the weight of our shared past. I took a deep breath and walked over, my heart pounding in my chest. "Hi, James," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. He looked up, his eyes filled with a mixture of regret and sadness. "Emily, thanks for coming." I sat down, the tension between us palpable. For a few moments neither of us spoke. The silence was heavy, filled with all the words we hadn't said and all the emotions we hadn't expressed. "Emily, I owe you an apology," James finally said, his voice trembling. "I've had some time to think, to really look at what happened, and I've realized that I made a terrible mistake." I swallowed hard, my throat tight with emotion. "James, it wasn't just a mistake. You walked out on me. You believed the lies without giving me a chance to defend myself." He nodded, his eyes glistening with unshed tears. "I know. I was so angry, so hurt that I didn't stop to think. Mike, he played me, and I fell for it. I should have trusted you." Hearing him acknowledge Mike's role in the deception was both validating and infuriating. "Do you know what it's been like for me? The rumors, the judgment, losing my friends. Everyone thinks I'm a cheater because of what Mike did." James reached across the table, his hand covering mine. "Emily, I'm so sorry. I can't change what happened, but I want to make things right. I need you to understand that I love you, and I never stopped loving you. I was just so blinded by my own anger and jealousy." Tears welled up in my eyes as I pulled my hand away. "James, it's not that simple. You shattered my trust. How can I ever believe that you won't doubt me again?" He looked down, his shoulders slumping. "I don't have an easy answer for that. All I can do is show you that I'm committed to making amends. I know it will take time, and I'm willing to do whatever it takes to earn your trust back." We sat there in silence for a while, the noise of the cafe fading into the background. I wanted to believe him, to take comfort in his words, but the pain was still too raw. Trust was something that had to be rebuilt, brick by brick, and I wasn't sure if I was ready to start that process. Over the next few weeks, James and I began to see each other more regularly. Our meetings were tentative, filled with cautious conversations and tentative steps towards reconciliation. He was patient, never pushing me too hard, always respecting my boundaries. One evening, as we walked through the park, James turned to me, his expression serious. "Emily, there's something you should know. I've confronted Mike about what he did. He denied it at first, but I pressed him, and he finally admitted to everything." Hearing this confirmation from James himself was a relief, but it also reignited my anger. "And what did he say? Did he apologize?" James sighed. "He did. But it was more about getting me off his back than genuine remorse. He's always been jealous, always felt like he was living in my shadow. I think he thought that if he could ruin our relationship, he'd finally have something over me." I shook my head, the enormity of Mike's betrayal sinking in. "I can't believe he would go that far. He destroyed our marriage, James." "I know," he said quietly, "and I can't undo the damage he's done. But I want to try to move forward, to rebuild what we had. I understand if you need more time, or if you can't forgive me, but I hope you'll consider giving us another chance." His words hung in the air, a plea for a second chance that I wasn't sure I could grant. Trusting him again would mean opening myself up to the possibility of more pain, more betrayal. But it also meant the chance to rebuild the love we once had, to find happiness together again. As we stood there, I realized that the decision was mine to make. It wouldn't be easy, and it would require a lot of hard work from both of us. But maybe, just maybe, we could find a way to move forward. "James," I said, my voice steady, "I'm willing to try, but we need to take it slow, and you need to understand that it's going to take a lot of time and effort to rebuild my trust." He nodded, a small smile breaking through his serious expression. "I understand, Emily. Thank you for giving me this chance." As we walked back to our cars, I felt a glimmer of hope. It was just the beginning, but it was a start. And sometimes that's all you need. Rebuilding a relationship is like rebuilding a house after a storm. The foundation may still be there, but everything else needs to be carefully reconstructed, brick by brick. As James and I started this process, I couldn't ignore the destruction that Mike's betrayal had left in its wake. After that evening in the park, James and I began to see each other more frequently. Our interactions were cautious, tentative. We were both tiptoeing around the pain and betrayal, trying to find a new normal. Every conversation felt like walking on eggshells. But slowly, we started to open up to each other again. In the meantime, I had to deal with the social fallout. The whispers and judgment from friends and neighbors were relentless. People love scandal, and my supposed affair was the juiciest piece of gossip they had encountered in years. Invitations to social events dried up, and I found myself increasingly isolated. My once busy social calendar was now filled with solitary evenings and Netflix marathons. One Saturday, I decided to visit a local farmer's market, hoping to distract myself from the loneliness. As I wandered through the stalls, I felt the stares and heard the hushed whispers. It was as if I had a scarlet letter emblazoned on my chest. I picked up some fresh produce and tried to ignore the looks, but it was impossible to escape the feeling of being judged. "Emily?" a voice called out. I turned to see Linda, an old friend, approaching me. We had been close before everything fell apart. She looked hesitant, unsure of how to approach me. "Hi, Linda," I said, forcing a smile. She gave me a tentative smile in return. "I heard about everything. How are you holding up?" I sighed, feeling the weight of her question. "It's been tough. People believe what they want to believe." Linda nodded, looking sympathetic. "I'm sorry, Emily. I never believed those rumors about you. I always thought something was off." Her words were a small comfort, a reminder that not everyone had turned against me. "Thanks, Linda. That means a lot." We chatted for a bit, and she invited me to a small gathering at her place the following weekend. It was a glimmer of hope, a sign that I wasn't entirely alone. Reconnecting with friends who believed in me was a crucial step in rebuilding my life. As James and I continued to navigate our relationship, we decided to attend couples therapy. It was a chance to lay everything on the table, to confront our issues with the help of a neutral third party. Our therapist, Dr. Collins, was a calm and patient woman who encouraged us to express our feelings openly. In one session, James admitted how deeply he had been affected by Mike's lies. I was so blinded by my own insecurities and jealousy. I couldn't see the truth. It was easier to believe the worst about you than to face my own fears. Hearing him say that was both painful and validating. "James, I felt so betrayed when you left. You didn't even give me a chance to defend myself. It shattered my trust in you." Dr. Collins nodded, guiding us through the conversation. Rebuilding trust takes time and consistent effort. It's about showing each other that you're committed to making this work. James squeezed my hand, his eyes filled with sincerity. "I'm committed, Emily. I'll do whatever it takes." As we continued therapy, we began to find a rhythm. We had good days and bad days, moments of progress and setbacks. Trust was not something that could be rebuilt overnight, but we were laying the groundwork, slowly but surely. One evening, James surprised me with a visit. He brought a bouquet of my favorite flowers, a gesture that felt both nostalgic and hopeful. "I know flowers don't fix everything, but I wanted to do something nice for you." he said, handing them to me. I smiled, taking the flowers and inhaling their sweet scent. Thank you, James. It's a start. We spent the evening talking, reminiscing about happier times and discussing our future. It felt good to laugh with him again, to feel a connection that had been missing for so long. As the weeks turned into months, our relationship continued to improve. We attended more therapy sessions, went on dates, and slowly began to rebuild our lives together. The pain of the past was still there, but it was no longer the defining feature of our relationship. One afternoon, I received an unexpected call from Mike. My heart raced as I answered, unsure of what to expect. "Emily, it's Mike," he said, his voice subdued. "Can we talk?" I hesitated, my anger and resentment bubbling to the surface. "What do you want, Mike? I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I want to apologize. What I did was unforgivable, and I'm sorry. I've been working on myself, trying to understand why I did what I did." His words caught me off guard. I had never expected an apology from him. "Mike, you destroyed my life. An apology doesn't fix that." "I know," he said quietly, "but I needed to say it. I am truly sorry, Emily." The call left me shaken, unsure of how to process his apology. It was a step, but it didn't erase the pain and betrayal. Forgiving him was a long way off, if it ever happened at all. As I sat there reflecting on the conversation, I realized that my journey towards healing was far from over. But I was no longer alone. James and I were in this together, rebuilding our relationship brick by brick. The road ahead was uncertain, filled with challenges and obstacles. But for the first time in a long time, I felt a glimmer of hope. We were moving forward, one step at a time. And maybe, just maybe, we could find our way back to each other. Rebuilding my life after the storm that Mike created felt like climbing a mountain with no end in sight. But with each passing day I grew stronger, more determined to reclaim my sense of self. Starting over wasn't just about rebuilding my marriage with James. It was about rediscovering who I was and what I wanted from life. I threw myself into my work. Being productive was a welcome distraction from the emotional chaos that had become my norm. My job as a marketing consultant had always been fulfilling, but now it became my sanctuary. I worked long hours, pouring my energy into new projects and ideas. It was during this time that I met Lucy, a vibrant and driven colleague who quickly became a friend. One evening, after a particularly grueling day, Lucy suggested we grab a drink. "You need a break, Emily. Let's go out and have some fun." I hesitated, the weight of everything still pressing down on me. "I'm not sure, Lucy. It's been a rough few months." "Exactly why you need this," she insisted, her eyes sparkling with mischief. "Come on, just one drink. It'll be good for you." Reluctantly, I agreed. We headed to a cozy bar downtown where the atmosphere was lively and inviting. As we sipped our cocktails, I found myself relaxing for the first time in what felt like ages. Lucy's infectious energy was hard to resist, and soon I was laughing and sharing stories with her. "You know, Emily," she said, leaning in conspiratorially, "you're stronger than you give yourself credit for. Not everyone could handle what you've been through and still come out the other side." Her words struck a chord. I had been so focused on the pain and betrayal that I hadn't taken a moment to acknowledge my own resilience. "Thanks, Lucy. I guess I just need to keep reminding myself of that." As the night wore on, we danced and chatted, and for a few hours I felt like my old self again. It was a small victory, but it meant the world to me. Reconnecting with friends like Lucy was a crucial step in rebuilding my life. Meanwhile, James and I continued our therapy sessions. Dr. Collins encouraged us to explore not just the trauma of the past, but also the future we wanted to build together. It was hard work, but we were committed to making it through. One day, during a particularly intense session, Dr. Collins asked us to write letters to each other, expressing our feelings and hopes for the future. "This exercise is about opening up and being vulnerable," she explained. "Take your time and be honest." I spent the next few days reflecting on everything I wanted to say. When we finally exchanged letters, My hands trembled as I opened James' envelope. "Dear Emily, I know I've hurt you in ways I can't ever fully understand, and for that, I'm deeply sorry. Every day I regret not believing you, not trusting you. I let my insecurities and Mike's lies come between us, and I will carry that guilt forever. But I want you to know that I'm committed to rebuilding our marriage and earning back your trust. You've shown incredible strength and resilience, and it reminds me why I fell in love with you in the first place. I hope we can find a way to move forward together, stronger than before. I love you and I always will. Yours, James." Tears filled my eyes as I read his words. It was a heartfelt apology, one that showed his genuine remorse and desire to make things right. My own letter was a mix of pain and hope, a reflection of the tumultuous journey we were on. "Dear James, the past few months have been the hardest of my life. The betrayal, the rumors, the loneliness, it all felt unbearable at times. But through it all, I've discovered a strength I didn't know I had. I still love you, but trust is something that has to be rebuilt slowly. I'm willing to try, but I need you to understand that it's a process. We have to face our fears and insecurities together if we're going to make this work. I believe in us, and I believe we can find our way back to each other. With hope, Emily." Reading each other's letters was a cathartic experience. It was a reminder that despite everything, our love was still there, buried under the pain and betrayal. We held each other, the letters clutched between us. And for the first time in a long time, I felt a glimmer of hope for our future. As the weeks turned into months, we continued to make progress. We attended more therapy sessions, went on dates, and gradually rebuilt our lives together. The pain of the past was still there, but it no longer defined us. We were learning to trust each other again, to communicate openly and honestly. One sunny afternoon, James and I decided to take a trip to the countryside. It was a spontaneous decision, a break from our routine. We drove for hours, talking and laughing, rediscovering the joy of each other's company. We stopped at a small bed and breakfast where we spent the weekend hiking, exploring, and simply being together. On our last night there, as we sat by a roaring fire, James took my hand. "Emily, I know we've been through hell, but I believe we can come out of this stronger. I want to spend the rest of my life making up for the pain I've caused you." I looked into his eyes, seeing the sincerity and determination there. "James, I believe in us too. We've come a long way, and we still have a long way to go, but I'm willing to keep fighting for us." We sealed our promise with a kiss, the warmth of the fire, and the promise of a new beginning enveloping us. It was a moment of peace, a moment where I felt truly hopeful for our future. Returning home, we continued our journey of healing and rebuilding. It wasn't always easy, and there were still challenges to overcome, but we faced them together. Our love, once shattered, was slowly being pieced back together, stronger and more resilient than before. As I looked at the life we were building, I realized that starting over wasn't just about erasing the past. It was about learning from it, growing from it, and finding a way to move forward with hope and determination. And with James by my side, I knew that we could face whatever challenges lay ahead. James' apology and our renewed efforts to rebuild our relationship were a start, but the wounds were still raw. I could see the regret in his eyes every day, a constant reminder of the pain we had both endured. Trust was a fragile thing, and while we were making progress, it was clear that James carried a heavy burden of guilt. One evening, as we sat on the couch watching a movie, James suddenly turned to me. "Emily, there's something I've been meaning to tell you," he said, his voice trembling slightly. I muted the TV and looked at him, sensing the seriousness of his tone. "What is it, James?" He took a deep breath, his eyes filled with a mix of pain and determination. "I've been doing a lot of thinking about everything that happened, and I realize that I need to make things right with more than just you. I need to confront Mike and make him understand the extent of the damage he caused. The thought of James facing Mike made my heart race. Mike had been the source of so much pain and betrayal. "James, are you sure that's a good idea? What if he just denies everything again?" James shook his head. "I have to try, Emily. I need to hear him admit to what he did, not just for my sake but for ours. We can't fully move forward until we confront the past." His resolve was clear, and despite my reservations, I knew he was right. Confronting Mike was a necessary step in our healing process. "Okay, James. Just be careful." A few days later, James arranged to meet Mike at a quiet cafe on the outskirts of town. I spent the afternoon anxiously waiting for his return, my mind racing with possibilities. When James finally walked through the door, his expression was a mix of exhaustion and relief. "How did it go?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. James sat down, running a hand through his hair. "It was intense. Mike tried to deny it at first, but I didn't back down. I told him how his actions had destroyed our marriage, how it nearly ruined our lives." I listened, my heart aching for James. "And what did he say?" "He eventually broke down and admitted everything," James continued. "He said he was jealous of our relationship, that he always felt like he was living in my shadow. He thought that if he could make me believe you were unfaithful, he'd finally have something over me." Hearing the confirmation of Mike's motives was both infuriating and heartbreaking. "Did he apologize?" James nodded. "He did, but it felt hollow. Like he was more sorry for getting caught than for what he did." I sighed, feeling the weight of it all. At least he admitted it. That's something, I suppose. James took my hand, his grip firm and reassuring. "Emily, I know this doesn't fix everything, but confronting Mike was important. We needed to hear the truth from him, and now we can start to truly move forward." In the weeks that followed, our relationship continued to heal. The confrontation with Mike had been a turning point, a necessary step in confronting the past. We still attended therapy sessions with Dr. Collins, who helped us navigate the complexities of rebuilding trust and communication. One evening, after a particularly productive session, James and I went for a walk in the park. The sun was setting, casting a warm glow over everything. We walked hand in hand, the silence between us comfortable and peaceful. "Emily," James said, breaking the silence, "I've been thinking a lot about our future. I want us to move forward, to build a life together that's even stronger than before." I smiled, feeling a surge of hope. "I want that too, James, but it will take time and effort from both of us." "I know," he replied, his eyes earnest. "I'm committed to doing whatever it takes. I love you, Emily, and I never want to lose you again." We continued our walk, talking about our dreams and plans for the future. It felt good to think about what lay ahead, to imagine a life filled with love and happiness. One weekend, we decided to take a short trip to the beach. It was a chance to relax, to escape the pressures of everyday life, and to reconnect with each other. The sound of the waves and the salty breeze were soothing, and we spent our days lounging on the sand and exploring the quaint seaside town. On our last evening, as we sat on the beach watching the sunset, James turned to me, his eyes filled with emotion. "Emily, this trip has made me realize how much I love you and how grateful I am for this second chance. I promise to never take you for granted again." I looked at him, my heart swelling with love and gratitude. "I love you too, James. We've been through so much, but I believe we can come out of this stronger." As we watched the sun dip below the horizon, I felt a sense of peace and hope. Our journey was far from over, but we were moving forward together. The past would always be a part of us, but it no longer defined us. We were building a new future, one filled with love, trust, and a deeper understanding of each other. Returning home from the trip, we continued to focus on our relationship. We made a conscious effort to communicate openly and honestly, to support each other through the ups and downs. Our friends and family noticed the changes in us, and slowly the whispers and judgment began to fade. One evening, as we sat on the porch, James took my hand. "Emily, there's something I want to ask you," he said, his voice steady and serious. I looked at him, curious. "What is it, James?" He took a deep breath, his eyes locked onto mine. "Will you renew our vows with me? I want to reaffirm our commitment to each other and start this new chapter with a fresh promise." Tears filled my eyes as I nodded. "Yes, James, I would love that." We began to plan a small, intimate ceremony with close friends and family. It wasn't about erasing the past, but about celebrating our resilience and the love that had brought us back together. The day of the ceremony was beautiful, filled with laughter, tears, and heartfelt vows. As we stood before our loved ones, promising to love and support each other through whatever life threw at us, I felt a deep sense of gratitude. We had been through hell and back, but we had come out the other side stronger and more committed than ever. The journey wasn't over, and there would still be challenges to face. But with James by my side, I knew we could handle anything. Our love had been tested and had emerged stronger, a testament to our resilience and determination. To all of you who have followed our story, thank you for your support and encouragement. It's been a long and difficult journey, but it's also been one of growth and transformation. I hope our story inspires you to face your own challenges with courage and an open heart. Let's continue to move forward, one step at a time, with love and hope guiding us. Life was slowly falling into a rhythm again. James and I had renewed our vows in a small, intimate ceremony, and our relationship was growing stronger day by day. Yet, the shadow of Mike's betrayal still lingered, a reminder of the pain and destruction he had caused. One evening I received an unexpected call. The number was unfamiliar, but something told me to answer. "Hello?" "Emily, it's Mike," came the voice from the other end, his tone surprisingly subdued. My heart skipped a beat. "Mike, what do you want?" There was a pause, then a deep sigh. "I know I don't deserve your time, but I need to apologize properly. Can we meet?" I hesitated, the anger and hurt bubbling up inside me. Mike had caused so much pain, and I wasn't sure I was ready to face him. But a part of me needed closure, needed to hear his apology face to face. "Fine. Tomorrow at the park, 3 p.m. The next day, I arrived at the park early, nerves gnawing at my insides. I found a bench and sat down, watching as families and couples enjoyed the sunny afternoon. I didn't have to wait long before Mike showed up, looking more disheveled and weary than I'd ever seen him. "Emily," he greeted, sitting down next to me, his eyes downcast. "Mike," I replied curtly, folding my arms. He took a deep breath, visibly struggling to find the right words. "I know there's nothing I can say to undo what I've done, but I want you to know how truly sorry I am. I was jealous, insecure, and I lashed out in the worst possible way. I never expected things to spiral out of control like they did." I stared at him, my emotions a whirlwind. "You destroyed my marriage, Mike. You made me out to be a liar and a cheater. Do you have any idea how much pain you caused?" He nodded, tears welling up in his eyes. "I do, Emily. I see it every day and I hate myself for it. I was so consumed by my own issues that I didn't care who I hurt. But seeing what it's done to you and James, I can't live with myself without trying to make amends." I took a deep breath, trying to process his words. An apology is a start, but it doesn't erase what happened. Trust isn't something that can be rebuilt overnight. "I know," he said quietly. "I don't expect forgiveness, but I want to do whatever I can to make things right. If that means staying out of your life, then so be it. I just needed you to hear me out." We sat in silence for a few moments, the weight of his words hanging in the air. I could see the sincerity in his eyes, the regret that seemed to have aged him overnight. It was a small comfort, knowing that he was truly remorseful, but it didn't erase the pain. "Mike," I finally said, my voice steady, "I appreciate the apology, but it's going to take time for me to even consider forgiving you. You need to work on yourself, deal with your issues, and show that you're genuinely trying to change." He nodded, a glimmer of hope in his eyes. "I will, Emily. Thank you for giving me a chance to apologize." As he walked away, I felt a strange mix of emotions: relief, anger, sadness, and a small spark of hope. Mike's apology didn't fix everything, but it was a step towards closure. Later that evening, I told James about the meeting. He listened quietly, his expression unreadable. "How do you feel about it?" he asked after I finished recounting the conversation. "I'm not sure," I admitted. "It was good to hear him apologize, but it doesn't change what happened. We still have a lot of work to do." James nodded, his hand gently squeezing mine. "We'll get through this together, Emily. One step at a time." The days that followed were filled with a renewed sense of purpose. James and I continued to attend therapy, focusing on rebuilding our trust and strengthening our communication. We spent more time together, enjoying simple pleasures like cooking dinner, going for walks, and just talking. One weekend we decided to visit a nearby vineyard. It was a beautiful sunny day, and the vineyard was nestled in a picturesque valley. We took a tour, learning about the winemaking process, and sampled some of the best wines they had to offer. As we sat on a terrace overlooking the vineyard, James turned to me, his eyes filled with love and determination. "Emily, I know we've been through a lot, but I truly believe we're stronger because of it. I love you more every day, and I'm so grateful for this second chance." I smiled, feeling a warmth spread through my chest. "I love you too, James. We're not perfect, but we're making it work. And that's what matters." As we clinked our glasses together, I felt a sense of peace and hope. The journey of healing was far from over, but we were making progress, one step at a time. We were learning to trust each other again, to find joy in the little things, and to build a future together. Returning home, we continued to focus on our relationship and our individual growth. We supported each other through the ups and downs, always striving to communicate openly and honestly. Our bond grew stronger, a testament to our resilience and determination. One evening, as we sat on the porch watching the sunset, James took my hand. "Emily, there's something I've been wanting to ask you." I looked at him, curious. "What is it, James?" He took a deep breath, his eyes filled with love and hope. "Would you consider starting a family with me? I know it's a big step, but I can't imagine anyone else I'd want to raise a family with." Tears filled my eyes as I nodded, feeling a surge of emotion. "Yes, James, I'd love that." As we embraced, I felt a sense of completeness and joy. We had come through the storm and emerged stronger, ready to face whatever the future held. Together we were rebuilding our lives, creating a new chapter filled with love, trust, and endless possibilities. Despite our progress, the shadows of the past still lingered. James and I were rebuilding our relationship, but I knew we needed to confront the root of our issues more deeply to truly move forward. One evening, we received an unexpected invitation from Mike. He wanted to have dinner with us, his way of continuing his efforts to make amends. I was hesitant, but James thought it could be a step toward closure. The dinner was set at Mike's apartment, a modest place that reflected his recent attempts at humility. When we arrived, Mike greeted us with a nervous smile. "Thank you for coming," he said, his voice sincere. We sat down to a simple meal, the atmosphere tense but civil. As we ate, Mike finally broke the silence. "I know this isn't easy for any of us, but I wanted to be honest about everything. I hurt you both deeply, and I want to explain why." James and I exchanged glances, bracing ourselves for what was to come. "Growing up, I always felt like I was living in James' shadow," Mike began. "No matter what I did, I could never measure up. When you two got married, I saw how happy you were, and it only fueled my jealousy. I convinced myself that if I could ruin your relationship, I'd feel better about myself. But all I did was destroy the one good thing I had left, my family." His words hung in the air, heavy with regret. I could see the pain in his eyes, the realization of the damage he had caused. "I'm sorry. Mike continued, his voice breaking. I know an apology isn't enough, but I want to change. I've started therapy, and I'm trying to understand my actions and work on being a better person. James reached out, placing a hand on Mike's shoulder. Thank you for being honest, Mike. It's going to take time for us to heal, but this is a start. I nodded, feeling a mix of emotions. Anger, sorrow, and a small spark of hope. Mike, what you did was unforgivable, but acknowledging it is the first step. We need time to process this, but maybe, just maybe, we can all find a way to move forward. As we left Mike's apartment that night, I felt a sense of closure. The truth had been laid bare, and while it didn't erase the past, it allowed us to begin healing. Back at home, James and I sat on the porch holding hands and reflecting on the evening. That was intense, James said softly. Yes, it was, I agreed. But I think it was necessary. We can't change what happened, but we can decide how we move forward. James nodded, his eyes filled with determination. Well, face it together, Emily, one step at a time. As the stars twinkled above us, I felt a sense of peace. We were on a difficult journey, but we were taking the steps needed to heal and rebuild, and that was enough for now. With the truth finally laid bare, James and I felt a renewed sense of purpose. The path to healing was still long, but we were more committed than ever to making it work. Our evenings were filled with heartfelt conversations, shared dreams, and a deepening understanding of each other. One sunny afternoon, James suggested a hike in the nearby hills. It was something we used to do often, and it felt like a perfect way to reconnect with each other and nature. As we climbed, the fresh air and beautiful scenery helped to clear our minds and open our hearts. Emily, James said as we reached the top of the hill overlooking a breathtaking view, I've been thinking a lot about our future. We've come so far, and I believe we can build something even stronger from here. I smiled, feeling a sense of peace. I believe that too, James. We've faced so much, and we've come out stronger. I think we're ready for the next chapter. As we stood there hand in hand, I realized how far we had come. From the depths of betrayal and pain, we had emerged with a deeper understanding and appreciation for each other. Our love had been tested, and it had endured. Returning home, we continued to focus on building a life filled with trust, love, and new memories. We planned more trips, spent time with friends and family, and even discussed starting a family of our own. The future felt bright, and the past no longer held us back. One evening, as we sat on the porch watching the sunset, James turned to me, his eyes filled with love. Emily, thank you for giving us another chance. I promise to always cherish and respect you. Tears filled my eyes as I leaned into him. Thank you, James. I love you, and I believe in us. The months that followed were filled with joy and a sense of fulfillment. James and I were not just rebuilding our relationship, but also creating a new foundation, one that was stronger and more resilient. We continued therapy, stayed committed to open communication, and found new ways to support each other's dreams. One day, as we were preparing dinner together, James looked at me with a serious expression. Emily, there's something I've been wanting to ask you. I looked up from chopping vegetables, curious. What is it? He took a deep breath. Would you consider renewing our vows, but this time with a bigger celebration? I want our friends and family to witness our commitment and the journey we've been on. My heart swelled with emotion. I would love that, James. Let's do it. We began planning a vow renewal ceremony, this time inviting all the people who had supported us along the way. It was a chance to celebrate not just our love, but also the resilience and strength that had brought us through the darkest times. The day of the ceremony was beautiful. Surrounded by friends and family, we stood under a canopy of flowers, reaffirming our love and commitment to each other. There were tears, laughter, and a deep sense of joy. As we exchanged our vows, I felt a profound sense of closure and a hopeful anticipation for the future. Emily, I promise to love you, respect you, and stand by your side no matter what challenges we face, James said, his voice steady and full of emotion. James. I promise to trust you, support you, and build a future with you, filled with love and understanding, I replied, my heart full. As we sealed our vows with a kiss, applause erupted from our friends and family. It was a moment of pure happiness, a testament to the journey we had been on and the love that had sustained us. Reflecting on everything, I realized that our story was one of growth, forgiveness, and the power of second chances. We had faced incredible challenges, but we had emerged stronger and more united. Our love had been tested, but it had endured and flourished. To all of you who have followed our journey, thank you for your support and encouragement. It's been a long and challenging road, but it's also been one of growth and transformation. I hope our story inspires you to face your own challenges with courage and an open heart. Let's continue to move forward one step at a time, with love and hope guiding us. Thank you for reading and being a part of our story. If you faced similar challenges or have thoughts to share, I'd love to hear from you. Together, we can find strength in our shared experiences and continue to grow. What are your thoughts on trust, forgiveness, and second chances? Have you faced similar struggles in your relationships? Let's share our stories and support each other on this journey.